Hey everyone, I'm back, and today we're going to be talking about Fantastic Four from 2015. Or as everyone likes to call this movie, Fant Four Stick, because that's what it says on the poster. And also the first trailer for this movie also called it Fant Four Stick. And this movie wasn't good, I'll say that much about it, but surprisingly enough, I didn't hate it as much as I thought I would. And I guess I'll just give you a quick backstory on this movie in terms of my own personal experience. Like, I was kind of excited to see this movie based off of the trailers, and it was like, okay, we're getting a new Fantastic Four movie. Let's see what this is. It has a good cast that I like, and it has something interesting attached to it. And people liked Chronicle, and Josh Trank was attached to this movie, and he was directing it. And I was like, okay, maybe something will happen here. And then the movie came out, everybody hated it, and Josh Trank made a tweet telling people not to watch it a day before it was released. And this movie didn't make any money. It was a huge flop, and it was a big deal when it came out. And there's a whole story behind the film that you can look up in terms of like what originally was planned and what the studio said, no, you can't do that, and what we wound up getting and all that crazy stuff. And yeah, this is just a product of a film that was ruined by studio interference. And I would like to see the original version of this movie if it did exist, but I don't think most of it was filmed. So unfortunately, we can't get that version of the movie. There are some good things that I found, even if some of them were like tiny things, but the things I liked, I do think the movie was well shot for the most part. Outside of some of the CG shots, there was some like stuff that just didn't look very good, and the visual effects also didn't really complement it very well for the most part. But I didn't think the overall look of the film looked bad for the most part, and the acting from the adults was pretty good for the most part. And I do think this movie has a good cast, and that probably helped. And the music in this movie wasn't terrible. It didn't drag the movie down, surprisingly. There was also a race scene in this movie, and that was kind of somewhat entertaining. And Johnny Storm, played by Michael B. Jordan, I thought his scenes were entertaining, and he was definitely the most entertaining character in the entire film for me. He's the only one where he's bringing something energetic, I guess, and that kind of works. Even if not all of his jokes work, mostly just the stuff from the trailer. The body horror element, that was kind of fun, and there was some fun violence, even though it's not really in the movie all that much. It's mostly towards the end where people's heads are exploding, but when we do get it, it's like, oh, that's kind of fun. But unfortunately, the rest of the movie is pretty bad, and there were some little tiny moments sprinkled throughout the movie that were like unintentionally goofy for me, and it was mostly just in the first 10-15 minutes, but I was just thinking to myself, this is just kind of dumb and not really working for me all that well. And the it's clobbering time moment at the beginning of the film, where we get like some backstory as to how that happened, is just Ben Grimm being beaten up by his brother, and his brother coming in and saying like, it's clobbering time. Like, that was pretty funny to me, I'm not gonna lie. And overall, the first 15 to 20 minutes of this movie are so stupid, and I just was like, okay, this is not working for me very well. And after that point, the movie did get a bit better, because I was like, oh, okay, something is being built here. We're going to this big lab, building this whole dimensional hopping device or whatever. And I was like, okay, this is something. We're moving along here. And there were some tiny moments where I was like, this isn't terrible. Like when Reed is talking to Susan, it was like not the worst thing in the world for me. I didn't think the relationship there that was kind of being built up was done terribly. Like, it wasn't amazing, but it wasn't as awkward as like the 2005 or 2007 films from memory. The visual effects in this movie didn't always look all that great, and Doctor Doom in this movie, I really do feel as though he could have used a redesign. And I get it. This movie is trying to do Fantastic Four with a body horror angle to it, even if they don't really fully commit to that. But I'll get into that in just a moment. But I do feel as though he could have had a redesign and that would have been better, because I get what they were going for, like having his body fused to the suit that he was wearing. It's like, okay, this is what that would look like, maybe. And that makes it moderately forgivable, but still, I wasn't in love with it. It just didn't really do much for me. And also, the Thing in this movie, I wasn't really a big fan of his design. He just wasn't really that interesting looking. And overall, the characters are just very weak in this film. And the character dynamics, there's just nothing really going on. They're all underdeveloped. And I just don't really get a good sense of these characters all that well. The story in this movie overall didn't really have much of a hook for me. There was nothing to keep me engaged. But I wasn't really bored by this movie for the most part. I know a lot of people are, and that was one of the biggest criticisms of this movie when it came out, is that a lot of people found this movie to be very boring, and somehow I was just one of the ones that didn't. I don't know why, but I think I'm just more interested in like the different directions that it's trying to go after. Like there's some just standard just setting everything up, and I'm like, okay, I don't hate this portion. Like the first half of this movie felt like a traditional build everything up, and eventually the characters get powers and it's like body horror, and I was like, okay, this is interesting. And then it shortly after that, it just turns into a different movie and just becomes a traditional superhero film that I guess the studio would have wanted, and not really anything interesting going on there. And it's very by the books and exactly what you would expect. And just the military trying to weaponize everyone that's a member of the Fantastic Four that you know. And they just don't really do much with that. It's briefly mentioned and they kind of establish these powers and the suits. But aside from that, there's really not much here. This movie has the classic shooting a big blue laser into the sky cliche. That was dumb. Not sure why that needed to be there. The third act of this movie was very unsatisfying to me. I didn't really like it all that much. And the action, it just kind of happened and then we're done with it. Basically, this movie only has a first act, basically, because the way things are set up and paced, the entire film just feels like one big setup for something that's going to happen eventually. And then we just get Doctor Doom, and then we get a little fight at the end, and then the movie ends. It's like, wow, that was, I guess, a movie. So overall, Fantastic, I guess I'll just call it that to make it easier as to which Fantastic Four movie I'm talking about, wasn't as bad as I was expecting in a sense, even though I kind of knew what to expect going into it. But all in all, not the worst movie I've ever seen in my life, but I just wish that a lot of things were done better, at a better angle, fully committed to, I guess, the body horror angle that might have been Josh Trank's idea for the film, and I would be more on board for that, but unfortunately, the way it's done by the end of it, we don't really get much of that, and it's just torn in so many different directions that by the end of it, you don't really get a satisfying film that like, oh, I love this movie because it went in this direction. It just kind of touches on those things, and it never really gives you a fully satisfying narrative from any particular direction. So unfortunately, I have to say, don't watch this movie. It's not worth it. It's not good, and I don't know. Will we ever get a Josh Trank full version of this movie? Probably not, but I'm curious to see what the original idea for the movie was, but unfortunately, there's not really much else to explore here. So with all that being said, I'm going to give Fantastic a 3 out of 10. It was a 4 for most of it, but the last act brought it down a point, if you can even call it a third act. It was very unsatisfying. Thank you for watching my videos. As always, if you enjoyed this review, be sure to leave a like and comment down below you thought of Fantastic, and my social media links, they will all be in the description, so follow me there. And last but not least, subscribe to be a part of Foley Nation, and I'll see when I get my next review up, and that is going to be for Prince of Darkness from 1987, directed by John Carpenter. I've never seen this movie before, and it's one of the John Carpenter films I have yet to see, so this will be fun. But anyways, look forward to that, but until I get that up, thank you for watching and have a great day.